Welcome back to the Morning Run, and it's the morning after the Ravens got their comeback efforts spoiled going against the New England Patriots in Foxborough. They were so close. They scored those 14 points in the third quarter, but were unable to complete the comeback because they were going up against Tom Brady. Well, joining us right now to discuss the Ravens and their defensive effort last night and how that will improve going on for the rest of the season, the last two games, and then potentially into the playoffs is former Raven Brad Jackson, and also an analyst at CSN Mid-Atlantic. Brad, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? A lot better than the guys that are currently playing, and a lot better than the Ravens flock are doing down here in Baltimore, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially because Tom Brady went off for 406 yards and 3 touchdowns. So break it down for us. What happened to the Ravens' defensive ability to cut off that deep threat that they've done so well for other quarterbacks or against other quarterbacks this season?
Well, one, they went against Captain America, and that's Tom Brady. And, you know, a lot of people talk about no Gronk, no problem. And you know, that was kind of, you know, you heard it around the national media. You heard it around here in Baltimore. And I had went on our pregame show on television and said, you know, that's not the case because the Patriots were 3-1 without Brady. But he's here. They've gotten used to, the Patriots are 15-5 in the regular season when Brady doesn't play. So they've kind of got used to it. More importantly, this season, Gronk, I know he missed a couple games. He was only the 5th leading receiver. So when you have guys like Chris Hogan, when you have guys like James White, your running back, as your 2nd leading receiver, Martellus Bennett, the 3rd leading receiver, 3 different players had 3+ touchdowns. 3 different players had 4+ touchdowns. That's, you know, a recipe as a former linebacker. It's hard because there's not that one guy that the coordinator can say, okay, like, for example, when we used to play against Randy Moss, we knew we had Chris McAllister, Dwayne Starks, double covering him with Rod Woodson over the top, and we would switch it up between man and true cover 2 and a little bit of, you know, coning it with someone in, a linebacker coming in and hitting them, sometimes me going out there jamming them at the line of scrimmage and then playing my flat responsibility and zone coverage from there. So with this, Tom Brady is just doing what makes him the greatest of all time, and that's obviously just distributing the football. And when you don't have any pressure in Tom Brady's face, I personally thought that the offensive line for the Patriots, and you guys know this, they have had their issues, you know, in protecting Tom, especially up the middle when you have a rookie guy starting at guard, you know, and they didn't attack the middle, so you have to give credit to the offensive line for the Patriots. They stepped up against one of the best defensive lines in the National Football League. Terrell Suggs was a non-factor, unfortunately. Elvis Dumerville provided a little pressure, but was a non-factor as well. And they didn't get to collapse the pocket around Tom, and he got more and more comfortable as the game went on. And when you don't get pressure on one of the greatest quarterbacks, you know, if he wins another Super Bowl, he will pass Joe Montana, in my personal view, as the greatest quarterback of all time. You know, that's going to cause a problem. And then once he started getting comfortable, and then the Patriots, to their credit, they stuck with their run. It wasn't dominant, but they stuck with the run game. And, you know, for them, when they're able to do that and only have 95-yard rushing as a team, but it was the big play-action fake that got Eric Weddle cheating, and he admitted it, had bad eyes on Chris Hogan's 79-yard back-breaker touchdown.
I mean, that's the crazy thing. There was nothing really fancy about that, Brad. And that was, especially, you've come back. You're back in the ball game. You've got a chance to win on first down. You allow a play like that for Hogan to just go right up the middle like that and to be wide open. That's just got to be devastating for any defense. I'm sure if you were on the field there, you just got to be looking around like, what just happened?
Right.
Well, and again, it goes back to what we just said, and you're correct. I mean, Eric Weddle he's been a huge, huge sign for the Ravens this offseason. He solidified the problem that has been there since Ed Reed left. You know, they drafted Matt Elam, and a lot of people were blaming him, but Eric Weddle being a man's man, you know, and he played great last night. 11 tackles, an interception in the end zone that otherwise it would have been worse in the first half without that interception in the end zone. And then he has a sack to close out the half, you know, on a big third down stop there. So, I mean, he played well, but that's the game of football. When you don't get pressure and when they're able to run the football, especially the second half, the way LeGarrette Blount was able, obviously, to get kind of going. It wasn't, again, dominant. He was 9 for 41 in the first half. But then in the second half, you know, and obviously he finished with 18 for 72. But there was a sequence when you look at it. It was 1st and 20. He gets 13 on the first carry. Then he gets 9. He picks up the first down, and then you kind of saw them. Like it was effective enough to force the safeties, and ultimately, what the Ravens didn't do without running the football, you saw the advantage in what it had to do with Eric Weddle taking over and getting the football, over his head by peeking in the backfoot on play action.
All right, the Ravens defense struggled. There's no doubt about that. But like you said, they were going up against Captain America. But I think the biggest loss for the Ravens was cornerback Jimmy Smith, who could be probably named the MVP of the defense so far this season. What have you heard in terms of updating his status, and how big of a blow would losing him be for this team?
Well, what I've heard, guys, is that it's a sprained ankle. They don't know until today. Usually the day after the game, everybody's sore and hurt, but they'll find out today. He'll probably get another MRI to get looked at by the trainers and our team doctor, Dr. Tucker, to see, how serious it is. When you're a corner, it's always going to be tough, because as corners and wide receivers, for any player in the National Football League, but especially out there, those guys on the island with speed, you got to make sure your feet are right. And if he can't turn and plant and get out of there. So, it'd be a huge loss. Cerise Wright actually came in and stepped up and played well. He was supposed to be the other starter. Tavon Young, obviously the rookie and young kid, had been playing well and basically was playing opposite of Jimmy Smith. So, it doesn't really matter if Deion Sanders and Mel Blount are out there playing corner. If there's no pass rush, which was for the first time this year, the defensive line didn't get any pressure on Captain America. And when you don't get pressure on a quarterback, I don't care if it's me standing there throwing the football. I'm going to complete some passes and ultimately make a big play at some point in time. And that's the case. So, hopefully it's not serious for Jimmy. He had just came back after missing a couple weeks with a back injury. And, like I said, hopefully that's not the case. And, he'll be back out there, because if they want to try to get into the playoffs, they're going to need him to be out there. Obviously against Carson Wentz this week. That's the next opponent. And you got, the big one on Christmas afternoon with Pittsburgh that could determine whether, the Ravens are going to the playoffs and getting in the big dance, or standing on the outside looking, like I was as a kid, when I would get in detention in school and looking at all the other kids having fun at recess in the playoffs.